recording?
We are recording.
Okay, and now move over here a little so our shoulders are closer together so that we look like we're comfy on the couch.
We're comfy on the couch. And
Hi, I'm Swami J.
hi, I'm Matri.
And this is, I've forgotten, what are we calling it?
Q&A time.
This is Q&A time. I think oh, there's the cues. Okay.
Good.
You have some cues
I have
there.
some cues. Swamiji, this one is about seeing the Atman in everyone.
Right there, I see, seeing the Atman in everyone. And the question came after one of our online satsangs. Somebody wrote this, said, I'm struggling most right now in both the transition with the move to a new place, as well as in my practice in life at the moment, with clashes, coloring seeming larger than tsunamis. Isn't that a nice metaphor?
Mm-hmm.
Attractions and aversions that are bigger than tsunamis. Wow. And sometimes the practice of seeing the Atman in everywhere, including myself, would put everything into perspective. Would it be possible to evolve a bit more on this subject with some practice or practical tools? Thanks in advance. Well, we can hope for the best. So, what do you think?
Yeah, what do you think? Tsunamis, huh?
Well, the question, the main part of the question to me is, how do I see the Atman in everybody?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing the Atman, which is at the core of a person's being, I agree with her. I acknowledge that's a very difficult thing to do. But I do have a little idea on how to make it more simplified. There's a comment that comes out of somewhere in the Upanishads where it says basically something like this. The student goes to the teacher and says, what's the nature of truth? Teacher says something like, it's indescribable. Student says, yeah, I've heard that, but that's not good enough. I don't know what to do with that. So the teacher says, oh, I'm paraphrasing or embellishing. I'm embellishing. Yeah, please, give me something
to describe.
So then the teacher says, well, okay, it's indescribable, but it has something to do with the nature of Sat Chit Ananda. Sat Chit and Ananda, which translates as existence, consciousness, bliss. And the point I want to make here is in reference to the first one of those, which is Sat.
Existence.
Which is existence.
Yes.
And so what we can do, it's hard to see the Atman in another person because it's hard to be aware purely of the Atman in ourselves because we have difficulty just walking around in samadhi all the time. But what you can do with yourself and another person, and in fact it's easier to do it, I think, with another person because you're looking out of you at another person. And if I look at you,
and I look at you,
what is relatively easy to see is that you exist.
yes,
And that in front of me, what I'm seeing, I may have different philosophies how to call it, but I'm seeing life force animate right in front of me. You're nodding, and there's probably some thoughts and emotions behind that and personality, but it doesn't matter what that is. What I'm seeing in front of me is the animation of life. If I see a bird fly by, I say, oh, there goes life. It just flew by. If I see somebody over there with a frown on their face and they look grumpy, or it's a new place and they look foreign and I don't know anything about that person, what I'm seeing is the animation of life itself.
yes. I know.
I'm seeing Sat.
She has 2 dogs. I think she can easily see life.
Yes, good point. Practice on the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the dogs, of course you see the dogs that you know and love and all like that.
Yes.
But just for a moment, see, what I see there is life animating out through the 2 dogs. And then you walk out the door of the house and walking down the street, there's a person. You say, I see life not only in my dogs, but I see life in that person there. And look, over there's life.
And in the trees.
And there's a tree. I just thought a tree too. I was going to say there's a tree. There's a tree growing out of the ground. You say, I see life. It's like everywhere I look, I see life animating. Or call it prana if you want. Or you say, just because you like the the different view, you say, I see Shakti, I see Divine Mother everywhere. I see God in all faces. Something like that. And I think it comes from Sat, of Sat Chidananda.
Beautiful.
Just a thought.
Just a thought. Next. I think she can play with that.
Okay.
So, here's one on that there is no path, but only a fool wouldn't take it.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to clarify a thought with the idea that there is no path, but only a fool wouldn't take it. I understand from the teachings that this path to take is to know the mind as an identity so that it can be transcended, and the transcendence is to focus on the self so that it can be experienced. Is this a clear understanding? Sounds reasonably clear to me, but the first thing that pops into my mind is if I focus on the self so that it can be experienced. Get ready for this. Here's the question. Who is it that is focusing on the self?
Self.
It's the self that's focusing on back here behind my senses and behind my manas, my mind, and behind my buddhi, my intelligence, is consciousness, is the self. So it's not really that I'm out here focusing on the self. What I'm really trying to do is trying to recede back and be aware that there's a world out there that I'm using my eyes and ears and my senses, my indriyas, my manas, my intelligence called buddhi, but I'm back here behind it. That's what comes to my mind. But in general, I think, yes, is my understanding clear? I think so. And the idea that there is no path but only a fool wouldn't take it, or doesn't take it, is something I never have known who to give credit to for this. It's something I heard something like 30 years ago, and it just struck me. And this is how it came up, because I mentioned it from time to time, and it just, for me, it's very striking. And the idea that there is no path is that I, as the self, as the Atman, as Purusha, as pure Shakti, as conscious awareness that is experiencing the world out here and relationships and people and all, that's always here. So there is no path to the realization of that. There are steps we need to take, as you said here, focus on to know the mind as an identity so that it can be transcended. Yes, and the same principle there is I'm knowing the mind. Well, it's a little different than I'm over here knowing the mind over there. Rather, there's a world out here that I'm engaging by use of the instrument called mind, employing the indriyas, the senses and actions to do it out there, but the world is out here, and I'm doing that through the mind, but I'm way back here. So there is no path. But there appears to be a path, because it appears that we have to deal with body and breath, and then mind, and then beyond mind is intelligence, and beyond that intelligence is the self, the Atman. Is that clear?
Yeah, so don't be a fool by not training those aspects.
Yeah, isn't that fun though?
It is fun.
What would you say? What do you have to add to that?
Not much. That the receding is the path. Although,
is that in there? Receding.
No, you just mentioned it. Receding. That
okay.
Receding backwards is the path, and then all the way back, poof, path is gone.
It appears to be a path.
It appears to be a path.
So
yes.
follow it.
And it appears to be practice.
Well, it's like, it's all Brahman, everything is all one, but this appears to be a glass of water, so cheers.
Cheers. So the next question is about breath retention.
What about breath retention pranayama?
We get that question.
Yeah,
regularly.
it comes up.
Yep.
I sort of quickly go back to a Swami Rama comment that describes that before you can practice breath retention, what's the word I'm looking for?
Prerequisite?
the prerequisite, the skill, the accomplishment before you can do breath retention the way it's intended, is that you have to be able to slow your breath and eliminate pause to the point where one breath is 90 seconds long. And that doesn't mean going so slow that you gasp for breath. That's not it.
It's smooth.
It's
and
very
gentle
smooth.
And flows. And
I have noticed in my attempts to do that, if my breath slows down to anywhere around about 2 breaths per minute, which is a 30-second breath, or one breath, one inhalation, one exhalation, as soon as it gets anywhere near about 30 seconds, that I am not able to count in my mind, because the mental activity of counting is sufficiently disturbing that I can't slow down the anatomy or the physiology or what. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So somewhere for me, after that point of slowing down, it's just the awareness of slowing down. And crucial to that is eliminating the pause. And if we do that and practice that faithfully for a period of months, if not a year or two, but months can really do it. If we do that, we notice that then it's relatively easy to suspend the exhalation or to suspend the inhalation. Then it's not, I mean this humorously, it's not doing breath retention that is essentially
oh
no. Yeah, I mean it's not, that's obviously exaggerated. But there's a lot of breath retention pranayama being taught by people that is essentially gripping your muscles and intentionally forcing yourself to hold your breath beyond your capacity and almost turning blue in the face. That's not it. It's
when you dive so deeply into that subtle breath, the counting, the karmendriya or speaking, or that just fades away because it's receding.
Yes.
And thus also when they become so slow, it's not an effort to stop. It just happens naturally.
Yeah,
That's
I think they call that kavala kumbhaka, the spontaneous kumbhaka.
Yes.
What was the word you just used? It wasn't natural. Suspends, that's the word I like that you just said. It just, as you slow it down and eliminate the pauses, so it just flows smoothly.
It also feels like this is that I am doing it. And if you're down there in that level of subtlety, there's hardly any you and ego.
Yeah, ego has ego, ahamkara, has started to recede back into the chitta, and so it's a smooth, gentle thing. And then if there happens to be a retention, that's okay, but it's a natural suspension, as you said. It's a spontaneous sort of thing.
Yes.
So I hope that
helps.
Helps. It's a question that many of us have, and it comes up regularly.
And it requires a balance of the 4 primitive fountains, sleep and food.
Oh yeah.
And so just to stop your breath on the external level while your
if
nervous
you
system is aroused and a bad diet
exercise,
and no sleep, then it's not useful. So this automatically requires that the totality of life is getting more balanced to get these experiences.
So what do we got there?
One more.
Oh, we did all those?
Yeah,
or we skipped over them?
I'm just going to give it to you because this one is good to go through.
Okay. Just read it.
Yeah.
Okay, the question has come up again and again for me in satsang, both online and at the ashram. I have wondered how to clearly determine whether or not the practice of unuseful thoughts to pass is just another way of deluding oneself at times. As my practice grows, I notice more clarity, but there are times when the mind suggests that I have simply traded one form of delusion for another. And I just wondered if this has ever come up for any of you and how it has been resolved. Absolutely. I think it's one of the most significant things that we all have faced and do face in doing meditation practices. Something was coming to mind as I was reading that, and then I remember what it was that was coming to mind. Is particularly early on in learning meditation, there's a very natural, common is the word I want to say. There's a very common temptation to think that what we're trying to do is get rid of these thoughts by putting in another one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take this thought, put it in there, and it's going to push away all the other thoughts. Replace. But often with the pushing,
Yes.
How do I get rid of the thoughts that are in my mind? I have a monkey mind. We read the book Monkey Mind. We say, oh, I have a monkey mind. How do I get rid of the monkey mind? Where there's actually an art, a skill that we want to learn that takes a tremendous amount of patience over a period of time. The idea is not one of pushing away unuseful thoughts. It's about learning the art of letting them go, letting them naturally go.
Making them come.
And then they can come, and then let them go. But to let them go, you have to let them come.
Yes.
The example I often think of, if you're going to the grocery store, food market, whatever, and you have your little shopping list of what to get in the store, and on your way to the store, you remember that there's something you forgot. You were going to buy some apples, and you did not write apples down on the list. And you say, oh,
I'm gonna think.
Got it, I'm going to go get some apples. Then you walk in the store, and you're walking around, and you cannot remember apples. Just gone.
Oof.
It's like, wait a minute, I told myself I was going to remember
You
apples.
probably remember it on the way back home.
You didn't get the apples, and you're on the way back home, and then you say, apples, ah! Anyway, the point of that story is, notice that that's true. Isn't it true?
Yes.
That our minds just work this way. We're forgetting things all the time.
Which is good.
We've just met a person for the 5th time, and we're going,
What's his name?
What's his name? I don't remember. Yeah, and so the point of that is that it really is the natural habit of the mind to forget. What does forget mean? It means to let go. So in terms of unuseful thoughts at meditation time or in daily life, we want to learn how to intentionally cultivate this natural habit.
Yeah.
And that's what it means. So if I merely take this unuseful thought and I try to block it away with another one and push this one out with this new one, that's not the way our mind works. And so if you try to push it away, we all know what happens. It just comes back. I try to push it this way, it just jumps over the fence and comes back. Here it is again.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to patiently learn the art of doing what the mind naturally, easily can do, and that is forget. And another word for forget is let go.
Yes. And that practice is, despite of if it's useful or not useful thoughts, it's just allowing all the thoughts.
Yes, it's allowing sometimes called the train of thought.
Yeah, just let them flow in their own speed without grabbing anything.
Yeah. And one of the things you can do to play with this, to practice it, is just sit quietly. I don't mean deep meditation, samadhi. Just sit quietly and intentionally allow images, memories to come to mind. So I sit here, I close my eyes, she comes to mind. One of the plants outside comes to mind. A bridge comes to mind. Whenever I do this, I always think about bridge.
I always think about a bridge just because you always think about a bridge.
I often think, I don't know, I have a fascination with bridges. So bridges come into my mind. And then a fruit comes to mind. And then a junk food comes to mind. And a person that I know that I love a lot comes to mind. And a person comes to mind who's angry at me. And an old memory from 20 years ago comes to mind. Then another fruit comes to mind. I think I need some fruit. I want an apple. I got talking about apples. But anyway, I'm just saying that you can sit down and intentionally, just sit there and intentionally say, next, next. It's like the ticket taker. I use the metaphor of the ticket taker in a theater. And in my fantasy of the ticket taker, it's a really fancy, classy theater. Mm-hmm. You know, like one of those New York City or Paris kind of places, you know, that you go in and it has, you know, the velvet.
And chandeliers.
And chandeliers, and the ticket taker is a a good-looking, well-dressed guy with a tuxedo and a, you know, like that, and said, "Good evening, madam," and takes your ticket. And then what does the ticket taker do? Does he say, "Thank you for ticket, go, get out of my way"? Ticket taker doesn't do that. "Good evening, madam," takes your ticket, and you go by, and on your own, you say, what does the ticket taker do? It says, "Next." It's an open invitation to everybody in the line that's coming into the theater. You take the ticket, they go take their seat. And what does the ticket taker do? Very gently, kindly, courteously says, "Next."
Yes.
And what I'm suggesting is play with it. Sit down, set your cell phone clock timer for 1 minute or 2 minutes. You know, your little timer that phones mostly have now. Or a little cooking timer from the store, and set it on a minute. And just say, for 1 minute I'm going to sit here. I'm not going to meditate. I'm not going to do samadhi. None of that. I'm just going to sit here and say, "Next, next, next." And just invite the next impression to come. And the only words you need to intentionally say is "next."
It will
And
give
watch the magic. You'll see for yourself. This is not a theory. This is not a philosophy to be memorized, a philosophical statement that you take like on a college exam where you get the answer right. That's not what it is. It's an experiment.
It's an experiment of the working of the mind itself.
Yes.
To
And
get
then you see
insights
for
on
yourself that
how it
the thoughts
flows.
really can
How it-
just go.
Yeah.
And the key is saying next and next and next. And somewhere along the way, the next that seems to come is deeper and deeper meditation.
And it becomes a new habit to be not engaged, to be unaffected, to be in that stance
Yes,
where things
and then
are
there's the
just
principle
floating
that
by.
if you get, this has been called witnessing the stream of thoughts.
Yes.
And the more we get good at that, the more we are able to, if we want, bring an idea back and say, "Okay, you idea, come back here." And you sort of meditate on that object. And if it's a negative thought, what it will do is unravel itself in front of you and dissipate and go away. And if it's a good thought, whatever that means, out in the external world, a family thing going on, you're a parent raising children, or it's something in your work that you're doing, your employment that you're doing as service to somebody, and some good idea comes to mind about how to solve some problem in work or personal life, you bring that idea forward, and it just, the creativity flows.
Yeah.
But then
So
you're a
they'll-
choice, you know, next,
Yeah.
next.
So it's all
next.
different skills that give you the totality of how
Yes.
the mind works.
Is this just a way of deluding oneself at times? Yes, sometimes the idea of pushing thoughts away, it is kind of deluding yourself.
And the sharper Buddha will get, the more you
Yeah.
distinct the difference between the two.
Yeah, so
So we've done them all.
we've done them all. Okay,
So
I hope that's
more
useful.
questions can be
and,
sent
so
in.
Let us know of things you'd like us to talk about, whether it's a question with a question mark at the end, a whole sentence. Some of these were whole sentences or paragraphs, or if it's simply one word, just
Yes.
please talk about fill in the blank. And so, hope you enjoy it. I had fun.
Me too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Namaste. Can't take these things too seriously.
Seriously. No.
So, okay.
Cut.
Bye-bye. See you online.